Hey guys, welcome to my wrap up of day 5 of the 2019 US Open and my look ahead to what's happening today on day 6. Let's quickly look at what happened yesterday. We had a bunch of legends playing and advancing pretty easily. Roger Federer really had no issues whatsoever with Dan Evans. I actually thought Evans would give him a little more trouble, but Roger really had no issues. Serena faced Muchova, a very talented top 30 player, but clearly had no issues as well. Isn't it kind of interesting the way these legends, these top 5 players, in the initial rounds, they struggle, they drop a few sets when they're playing super low ranked players, qualifiers, wild cards, and have a few scares, and then something clicks, and they wind up facing better and better, at least on paper, players, and they almost seem to have less and less of a problem. I think it's really interesting. I mean, people use all these analogies about players working their way into the tournament and shaking the rust off, but to me, it's just incredible that players like Roger and Serena can just keep getting better and better and having an easier time with presumably more difficult opponents. So kudos to them. The battle of the hard-hitting Americans, Keys versus Kenin. Keys got through. I saw this match. She was up and down. They both were. 6-3, 7-5 makes it look a little easier than it was for Madison, but all in all, it was a good match for her. Didn't have a lot of that characteristic overhitting and crazy wild errors. So I like how Madison's looking, and she's on to the 4th round. Djokovic, also, the scoreline maybe doesn't quite reflect what happened. There were a lot of really long, exhausting deuce games, a lot of break points against Novak, but in the end, he got it done in straight sets. Pliskova is through. Ash Barty, one of my favorites, she's through. Wawrinka over Lorenzi. I talked about Lorenzi yesterday. He's one of these journeymen who was just having a great run thanks to a little luck and hard work. And his run's over, but he should be really proud of what he did. Svitolina had zero trouble with her countrywoman Yastremska. Medvedev took out Lopez in 4. I watched some of this match, and I got to say, I think Medvedev needs a little bit of an attitude adjustment. Now, I know there are players on tour who, they're feisty, they have beef with other players or the umps, but Medvedev is really on the brink of like really being at the very top of the game of winning Grand Slams. And I think if he wants to be a legend, if he wants to be someone that other players and kids and club players look up to, if he wants sponsorship deals, he really needs to get it together. He was just pulling a lot of stuff yesterday that I really did not care for. He was there was one moment where a ball kid just approached him with the towel, and he sort of violently grabbed it out of his hand and threw it back at him. And then he started yelling at the chair umpire, and the audience was kind of not appreciating it. They might have been booing him, and they actually caught on video, they did this on the replay, where he sort of was pretending to scratch his head, but he actually had his middle finger up, like as if to say F you to the audience. So that kind of stuff is just it's not good sportsmanship. It's not becoming of a potential top 3 player. So I really hope he gets it together. One of the funny things, though, was that in his player's box was his sports psychiatrist, and this woman was actually taking copious notes. So clearly he, is seeking help for managing his emotions. I just thought it was hilarious that the psychiatrist was there and observing him and taking notes. I'm sure they're going to have an interesting session when they next meet. De Minaur took out Nishikori. That's awesome. I didn't think he was going to be able to do that, but I'm thrilled for him. I think Alex really, he's an amazing player, and this could be the breakthrough he's been looking for. Konta advances easily. Wong. Kopfer, he's kind of one of the breakout stories of the tournament. If we look at him, he's ranked 118, so not exactly at the very top of the game. and he took out Basilashvili, who's a seeded player. And I'm pretty sure Kopfer also took out another seed. He took out Opelka, which was a pretty good win. So good for Kopfer. He's moving on to the fourth round. Looking at some of the other matches, Grigor Dimitrov is through. Also, got a little bit of luck with that walkover, but I think we can say Grigor is back. He's got an opportunity to go deep and to sort of show us what he's made of. He's been struggling lately, so this is really good news for him. Okay, so why don't we talk about what's happening today? It's kind of crazy. It feels like the U.S. Open just started, but by the end of today, we will have gone from 128 players on the men's side and 128 players on the women's side to just 16 players. So funny how that happens, but we're virtually halfway there. Wozniacki against Andreescu. This could be an interesting match. I'm not sure if they have ever played, but Andreescu is definitely on the rise. She just won a huge tournament in Canada. She's beaten a lot of top 10 players. And, Wozniacki, she's struggling a little bit. Her ranking has dropped. I know she's dealing with, she was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, so there's no saying how that's affecting her play. Then we have Nadal versus Chung. Now, I really think Chung has almost no chance, but I'm really, really happy to see that he's advanced. As you might remember, he made it to the semifinal of a major last year, and thank you to my friend Nick for pointing out I mistakenly said the U.S. Open, but it was actually the Australian Open. And I have to say, something I've realized, I love underdogs, and I think Chung is a great example of that. If we go to his profile, Chung, I'd heard stories that when he was at IMG, people would refer to him as the scientist because he has these crazy white glasses. I guess he doesn't wear contact lenses. It's just nice to see that someone who is not the prototype of this sort of Greek god of an athlete, someone who maybe has funny glasses and bad skin and is shy and maybe his English isn't great, that this person can do great things. I think we sort of have this idea of what an athlete needs to look like, and he's showing us that that's not necessarily the case. And the same is true for Taylor Townsend. People get on her about her weight because everyone expects tennis players to be tall and thin, and she's proving them wrong. Then there is the matchup that everyone is just salivating over, Naomi Osaka and Coco Gauff. Unless you've been living under a rock, I'm sure you've heard about them. Osaka is the defending champion. Gauff is the 15-year-old American. They both have a lot of things going for them. Gauff has just been so incredibly poised. Most 15-year-olds throw tantrums when their Snapchat isn't working. She just seems really mature, really composed, and I think this is a toss-up. Something is telling me that Osaka is going to take this just because of her experience, but I think it's kind of a statistical dead heat, so I will definitely be watching that. Rublev Kyrgios, this should be also an interesting one. You have two very fiery personalities. People often say, it all depends on which Nick Kyrgios shows up. Is it going to be the focused, disciplined Nick Kyrgios, who has some of the most amazing, most athletic shots in the game, or will he allow things to get under his skin? In which case, his game might tank. He might get a code violation. He might get point penalties, and he might just throw in the towel. So it's going to be an interesting match, but I honestly can't tell you which way it's going to go. Getting back to Taylor Townsend, the American, she's had a really great run. She beat Simona Halep, and now she's facing Sorana Cirstea, who's an okay player, but she's ranked 106. So at this point, we would have expected Taylor to be facing a seed. But in fact, she took care of the seeded player in the last round. So I think she has an excellent chance of going through to the fourth round. Gerges Bertens, I'm going to give this one to Bertens. Zverev, as I mentioned, there's just something about him in Grand Slams. He just does not do well. And lately he's just kind of been hanging on by a thread, winning in 5 sets. So I'm going to give this one to him. But if he wants to go deep, he's really going to have to sort of get it together and figure things out. Monfils Shapovalov, that should be a great match. You got 2 serious shot makers, 2 serious athletes. I got to say, Denis, I've been liking his game. He's been on the upswing. He looked great against Auger-Aliassime, so I'm going to give this one to him. Kontaveit Bencic, I love both their games, but I'm going to give this one to Kontaveit. I picked Mertens to go through. An and Ostapenko, I don't think I even know An, but she appears to be American and she's in the 3rd round. I'm going to abstain on that one because I just don't know enough about her game. Isner Cilic, I think that's going to be a very boring match with a lot of tie breaks. Schwartzman Sandgren, I like Diego. He's another one of, for me, I consider him an underdog. He's probably the shortest man on the tour, and nevertheless, he hits hard. He's got a deceptively hard serve, and I heard a really interesting stat about Diego. They have all these statistics where they rank players by, fastest serve, best at holding their serve, best at converting or staving off break points. Schwartzman, this may have changed, but I think as of last year, he had the highest rate of breaking breaking his opponents. I think it was something crazy like 38%. I think average is like 20%, and really poor returners like Isner have something like 9%. So Diego, as much as we talk about Novak and Andy Murray being amazing returners, Schwartzman is able to break his opponents like 40% of the time. That's kind of crazy. Putintseva is a very tricky player. She has sort of a wily style. She drops shots a lot. She's got a bit of an attitude. She can get under people's skin, but Donna Vekic, I think, is really strong, and I think she will take this. Papirin is a very talented young player, but Berrettini is also he's a really hard hitter, and he's sort of dropped off a little, but as of a few months ago, he was winning tournaments and kind of doing amazing things. He did lose badly to Roger at Wimbledon, though. And then Andujar over Bublik. Bublik is also kind of an unconventional player. He likes to drop shot. He likes to do the underhanded serve. I think he kind of copied that from Kyrgios. But I think Andujar is just the more solid player, and I think he's going to go through. And as you can see, virtually everything else is doubles. That's what happens as we move on later in the tournament. It's a mix of singles and doubles mixed, as well as men's and women's. So guys, that is it for today. As always, if you liked what you heard, please give a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and as always, comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you liked what you heard, if you hated what you heard, if there's other sort of topics or players you want to hear me talk more about. I'd love to read those. Okay guys, until tomorrow, take care.